It's a great delight to be able to connect to all of you for this important discussion that we are going to have, centering on our MEG2 paper, British drama, and the focus is going to be on G.B. Shaw's famous play Pygmalion. As you understand that literature empowers our way in a very definite way, and we are going to discuss how G.B. Shaw, who wrote about more than 60 plays, and then he was such a big influence in his times, early 20th century. When you look at him, he gets a Nobel Prize, and then his plays are imbued with ideas, like you say comedy of ideas, like where he brings in so many reflections of society. And then how, like in a particular reference to Pygmalion, the important play that we have, will discuss as to how the power of drama, and that it was made into a film also subsequently. So yes, let's discuss. Let's begin our point of discussion on this. Like first is like what is the life and influence of G.B. Shaw that we are discussing. G.B. Shaw was born in Dublin in the year 1856 and became a central figure. As I was telling you that he wrote many plays, more than 60 plays, and has an influence, quite similar to that of William Shakespeare, and political life through his works with Fabian Society. And this is important, that he believed that literature should confront social issues directly, using theatre as a tool for moral and political reform. This is, sometimes, there are two arguments, arts for art's sake and arts for life's sake. So G.B. Shaw is more for that whatever he writes, whatever his characters do on the stage, it has to go and impact life at large. People have to look at that and then feel a positive influence. That is important. And if you look at that, be it Pygmalion or be it Arms and the Man, be it all other plays that he has written, there's a sharp impulse that you will notice there. And if you look at if you look at, say, Shaw, kind of dramatic innovation. Shaw is a man of always experimenting, always bringing in new ideas, challenging traditional Victorian theatre by his sheer emphasis on logic, realism, and ideological conflict over sentimentality. There was a point of time when too much of sentimental kind of influence, or you may say that emotional overdose was there. Shaw came and then he brought the idea of logic, the idea of intellect, and you all understand when he talked about man and Superman, as perhaps we are born with some limitations. Perhaps a human being, a man or a woman, is born with certain issues that are beyond one's reach, but then he or she has to kind of try harder to kind of overcome those. So yeah, there has to be a kind of natural, deliberate attempt to be a better person, and Shaw so powerfully brings that in his plays. So yeah, his plays often feature debates between opposing worldviews, with characters serving as vehicles for social and philosophical commentary. And if I may talk about how literary context and the myth of you understand that when we are studying this play, you need to be aware of the myth, the backdrop. Like Shaw drew inspiration from the Greek myth of Pygmalion, where a sculptor falls in love with a statue that he created. Unlike the myth, Shaw's version focuses more on the transformation through education and rejects romantic idealism. So in this play, you have just like in that mythical narrative, it happens where the sculptor kind of falls in kind of an emotional relationship. Here also, Professor Higgins, kind of develops a connect with Eliza, the flower girl, and then there is, but it is not like kind of emotional. Where is more of like a kind of academic linkage where there's a connection. So yes, this play is though rooted in history, rooted in a myth, but then it has a certain degree, it has a high degree of contemporary educational background. So yes, if you look at it, it's like if we go to say literary context and the myth of Pygmalion, it belongs to the tradition of realist drama and reflects early 20th century concerns about class, identity, and gender roles. You'll find that this play so very powerfully bridges classical structure of modern skepticism using myth as a framework for social critiques. This is what I'm trying to share with you, that how Shaw is a connect. Like of course he will bring in modern day ideas. He will bring in theater of ideas, theater of intellect. But he brings his, mythicism also. He brings he derives so much. I'm reminded of what T.S. Eliot has to say about in the context of individual talent and the tradition. So one has to combine these two, and Shaw is a relevant example here. So you find that in this play he brings together the myth and then in the classical structure and then the modern day background. If we go to the plot overview, I would be happy to talk about how Eliza, the flower girl, and the wager, a Cockney flower girl meets Professor Henry Higgins, a phonetics professor, who bets he can pass her off as a duchess. This is just like between two friends when Professor Higgins is discussing it with his friend, and when they meet this flower girl, that is basically any kind of social situation, any kind of social conditioning. It depends so much on language, and it will not be difficult for him to invest this language skills in that girl, and then she may easily look like a duchess. So this is how this play begins, and then you find that this wager sets the central conflict in motion, and language becomes the medium of social responsibility, social mobility, in fact, and control. So this play, in that sense, you'll find that talks about the role of language. What are the what is the power of language? Some people say that silence is golden, but here it's more emphasis on language, and with sophisticated words, with the kind of the choice of words, you can win over this world. So and you'll find that as far as the crisis and resolution is concerned, you'll find that the transformation of Lisa leads to personal and emotional confusion, and she no longer belongs to either class. There's a problem, and the ending remains open-ended, avoiding emotional romantic resolution, highlighting issues of independence and identity. Again, if you discuss themes, basically language and class, language as social currency, I'll try to talk about. Shaw demonstrate how speech patterns define one's place in the social hierarchy, often more than behavior or character. This is something for all of us to see, that the transformation of Eliza, for example, how we the accent reveals the artificial basis of class distinction in Edwardian society. Friends, you will understand that when Shaw through Professor Higgins talks about the role of language, he's not simply emphasizing the role of language. He's also at the same time talking about the you can say frivolity, a kind of in a way cosmetic nature of the social morality that we have. We don't look at the human aspect of a person, but we simply get carried away by the sophistication and the language that is being used. So this is something that he talks about when Eliza gets accepted as a duchess by all those people in a elitist society, in a royal society. It is something that Shaw uses as a point, as a kind of a remark against the hollowness and the kind of that perception part that we may take it up like, and then when we look at the idea of language and class, where Eliza's speech changes, her social status remain ambiguous and exposes the limits of linguistic mobility. What is Shaw doing here? He is critiquing the notion that external refinement can erase systemic barriers or grant true social acceptance. When we talk about identity and self-determination, it is more centrally, it is about the search of the self. The girl Eliza here, the central character, she begins as an object, and then but gradually asserts her autonomy and moral dignity. You'll find when you are reading the play that her journey challenges the assumption that identity is defined by class or constructed by others. So you'll find that in this the evolution that takes place in the character of Eliza during the course of the play, from the beginning, middle and end, you'll find that yes, in the beginning, when these two friends are talking about the flower girl and the kind of how Professor Higgins can through the experiment of language can lead to a transformation. Initially she is an object, but gradually she will find a kind of newer self, the idea of human autonomy, the idea of human uniqueness. Every human body is unique, and each one of us has a unique sense of morality and a way of looking at this world. So you find that Eliza grows in a tremendous way. And this is perhaps at some level kind of shocks Professor Higgins also. You'll find that when we are talking about how she rejects objectification, that is important. And we find that our major playwright Shaw subverts the Pygmalion myth by refusing to romanticize Eliza's transformation or link it to male validation. At the same time, you'll find that Eliza's refusal to be owned by Higgins marks a growth from subject to, in a way, a powerful, active person to agent of her own destiny. This is what I'm trying to talk about. And initially you'll find that Professor Higgins is a figure of control, power, and patriarchy. He kind of brings together all these factors, but he'll find that through the course of dialogues that Eliza is projected rather as a kind of object, and he exercises dominance through education and language, kind of that superiority, and then the kind of arrogance that reflects his disregard for her feelings irritates her, kind of and you may this arrogance may be attributed to patriarchy, the mindset that is embedded in the he acts more like a professor, and takes Eliza more or less like a student in his classroom. That is something that but then in the course of the play it changes, it evolves and then leads to a situation where Eliza kind of claims herself back, finds her true uniqueness, and then the shape and size of her individual identity. So this is how we find that yes, this this play is about resistance and rebellion of a girl, and then the kind of clash between two kinds of social forces that we often come across. Marx talks about in the sense proletariat and bourgeois class in some way, but here it is more complex. We find that Eliza's growing awareness leads her to resist Professor Higgins' control and asserts her independence. Shaw uses this conflict to expose gendered power imbalances and critique male entitlement within intellectual authority. You'll agree that great playwrights they kind of initiate trends, initiate ideas in such a way that like for example, this play was written say more than 100 years back in 1906. Like you find this play. So after say more than 100 years, you find that the kind of female autonomy, or you can, when we are talking about liberation of all gendered forces and kind of decline of patriarchy. I think in this play, in this play Pygmalion, through characters such as Professor Higgins and then Eliza, you find that Shaw presents a vision, a progressive vision of society, where when Eliza is able to resist and look like a rebellious figure, it is visible that he is able to showcase that yes, there is a important side possible. If I talk to you about learning is important, education here is suggested. When we use education, when we use our wisdom, our knowledge base, I think it is easier doing that. So when this shift, so like if you look at some character analysis, it is important if I give you a brief of Henry Higgins, you find that in as far as you find that this is basically when we are talking about resistance and rebellion, and we find in this the idea of education that we find, where education offers Eliza access to new social possibilities and gives her tools to challenge her earlier identity, and Shaw presents education as an important avenue in one's life. It is important if we talk about education and its consequences. Alienation and displacement is one. We find in the course of the play that Eliza becomes alienated from both her original community and elite world she enters, and Shaw highlights the paradox of education. But this is something that we need to imbibe, that education, when it creates a illumination of mind, when it opens up a newer way of way of looking at this world, it often helps, sometimes isolates us. So this is no need to kind of worry about. Of course, like when Lisa recovers her true self, it is more of an opportunity for her to reclaim her own individual identity. And if you look at say the idea of Eliza, if I may discuss a little more on that, she evolves into a confident, articulate woman who demands recognition and autonomy. Her final resolution to be claimed by Higgins shows refusal, like when she says that I'm on my own and I'm not going to submit to anybody else. It shows that the value of self-respect over dependency. So rationalists and scientists, like we find Professor Higgins as a rationalist, as a person who sees a language as a system to be mastered, not the other argument that we are born with the language and perhaps we cannot acquire it at our own personal level. So mastered and manipulated, reducing people to subjects of study. His obsession with the phonetics blinds himself to the emotional intelligence and human connection. In fact, like if you look at if you critically evaluate the character of Professor Higgins, he's flawed in a way when he begins to treat human beings particularly Eliza, more as a in a way, just like a scientist uses some insect inside his lab, like that, when he uses Eliza more as an object and as just like a as a platform, as a training kind of situation, and nothing to do with the emotional situation. That is something that creates a bit of like a problem, and he looks like a little bit of villain also, and bit of like all that the social power that he exercises, and then the bit of patriarchy that gets invested in the process in his character. So yes, so he Shaw presents him as a critique of patriarchal arrogance, and you find that there is another character, Colonel Pickering, and when we look at Pickering treats Eliza with respect from the beginning, recognizing her humanity before her transformation. So these are two friends, Colonel Pickering and Professor Higgins. So like you have where I'll take to you like about the moral counterbalance that need to be understood here. Pickering functions as a moral anchor in the play, showing that civility and decency matter as much as intellect. His presence allows Shaw to kind of demonstrate to the audience that transformation need not come at the cost of kindness. So yes, if we go to like if I talk about setting and symbolism, you may look at how London is presented as a divided society, and London is a metaphor of all metropolitan cities that we have today. So locations from Covent Garden to Wimpole Street reflect stark contrast between social classes. So one is a very rich, in a way luxurious setting, and then you have where you have flower market where this flower girl sells the stuff. You have a very kind of known elite society. So Shaw uses the urban setting to underline how geography in a way reflects inequality, and how a movement across spaces signifies social change. I think that when we look at the setting, this is about the craft of G.B. Shaw. When you use two different locations to suggest about disparity, about the lack of distribution of resources, equal distribution of resources, and where people are, on the one hand, they are fighting for survival, fighting for their life and necessities, and on the other hand, where everything is available in abundance, and people are more interested in language, in a way finesse of language, and like how language has to be used. So like I think Shaw's use of settings gives a kind of a great opportunity for him to reveal how the London, the city of London, is a divided kind of house where both rich and poor live in a slightly a kind of difficult situation. So yes, if you look at the structure and genre, for example, you'll find that this play follows a traditional 5 structure, each act marking a stage in Eliza's transformation and conflict. You find that Shaw uses this classical form to anchor a modern, ideologically driven narrative that critiques its own romantic convention. So you have a social purpose, and this play is all about comedic elements, where its primary form is social criticism, and Shaw avoids a conventional happy ending, challenging the audience to think rather than feel satisfied. This is what I have tried to share with you, that Shaw, as a person, as a proponent of theater of ideas, is all about throwing intellectual stuff at his audience. And when he through his characters, through his settings, through the symbolism, through his job is not to in a way, kind of cater to the sentimentalities, cater to the, emotional requirements, but he's more about, didacticism, moral impulse, as to, he is it looks like that he's perhaps asking as to how this society at large will evolve, how there will be kind of, realization of truer human self in all of these citizens. So so if you look at, you may need to study as far as the dialogues and language is concerned in this play, and you'll find that, you may do a study as to how Shaw's dialogue is crisp, witty, didactic, often functioning as a form of argument and social commentary, and he avoids poetic flourishes in favor of clarity, using speech as a tool to reveal character and ideology. You'll find that, yes, of course, there's a use of language in the hands of Professor Higgins, but at the external level, you find that in this play Pygmalion, the use, the employment of language is so crucial. You may study that. You'll find that each character using that language reflects his social temper, social conditioning, social status, and you'll be able to kind of imbibe so much from there. I think when we are at the kind of in a concluding phase, we will try to wind it up because of the time factor. I will like to sum it up with this thought that Shaw, through this play Pygmalion, has creating a big impact, an everlasting impact, and through the characters of Eliza and Higgins, he has brought us to the realization that there is a social conflict, and each one of us need to understand our own responsibility, realization of one's own human uniqueness and ability is important. Language is important, but everybody can make efforts to understand that. I appreciate all of you joining this program. We will connect and discuss more layers of this play in our next session. Thank you very much.